People expect software to be free. If you don't think of it as software, it's a service, first of all. You pay a lot more to your cable company than you're going to pay to Roon for the services that you've gotten. There's a lot of value there. So I think it ends up being pretty good value for most people.
Were you going to talk about some typical system configurations?
We are. I'm going to have to go really fast. So I'm going to skip this break so that we can touch on some of these things. All right.
Let me just highlight one more thing about the Roon nucleus that you haven't mentioned, but it can house a solid state hard drive in the nucleus. So I've got a 2 terabyte solid state drive that holds all my music.
Yeah, for a lot of people, that's all the space you need.
It's lickety split.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't have to go to the NAS drive to pick anything up. It's just all running straight out of the room.
Yep. And you can do that. That's a nice approach. For this system, I could have connected that USB drive directly to that little blue Roon server and done something similar, but I wanted to show a NAS solution for people. Some people have, like me, will have a NAS in their house because they don't just have music. They've got 10 terabytes of movies and.
Yeah, I have the same thing, but all my music goes off the nucleus.
Yeah, no, it's a nice way to go. It will definitely be faster than using an NAS. So here's some kind of simple configuration things. You have to have an audio system, speakers and amplifiers and all that other stuff. And you might want to have a DAC. In this case, these things would replace a DAC or would fit the role of a DAC if you don't already have one. So network in, analog audio out. A lot of people don't know about this, but Bryston took the Raspberry Pi. They did a little bit of joint project with a company called Hi-Fi Berry, and they made this Bryston BD Pi player. It's about $1,500. It has a $35 computer in it, essentially, and then a little DAC card that's on top of it. But it's got a nice little display, and it's in kind of an anodized aluminum case, and it looks pretty nice. It has a good power supply and that kind of stuff. But it's basically kind of a fancy Raspberry Pi thing. But if you want to buy something like from Bryston is pretty known for their support. Like you get a 20-year warranty on things, right? If you want to buy something from a company that you're pretty sure is going to be around for a while, that's an option that's out there. Carry Audio, I did some looking around to see what kind of stuff they've got. They've got a network player that's about $4.5 grand. DCS is my initials actually, but not my company. I wish it was because their Rossini player is about $28.5 grand or so. I haven't used a lot of these, but I've used like a configuration that's very similar to that one. The Mytek Brooklyn Bridge is really, really cool. Talked about it before, but it's basically like the Mytek Brooklyn Plus, except it's got a streamer built in. It's about $3 grand. It's a really great solution for somebody who wants to kind of consolidate, simplify their audio system, just have a single box that can be a streamer, a preamp, analog, or a phono stage, just all in kind of one box. Orchard Audio's PecanPi streamer, that's one of the devices that we've been listening to today. It's about $500. Sometimes they have sales and it's a little bit less. I've got some business cards from my pal Leo, who lent me some of this PecanPi stuff. If you want to grab one and talk to him, he's a pretty cool guy and happy to answer questions. Allo, the people who make the kind of network streamer that I'm using, they also have a Katana player. It's based on the same kind of DAC chip that's in John's Pro-Ject DAC. It's a network player though, so it's Ethernet in, analog audio out. Depending on the configuration, it's around $300 or $400. Allo Boss 1.2 player, it's a similar kind of deal, but it's less expensive. You wouldn't use it in your main system, but it would sound like crazy good in just about any other room of your house for background music. I've got one connected to, or something similar connected to a pair of JBL 305 power monitors. We listen to that all the time as kind of background music for dinner, and it sounds really, really good. So all kinds of different price points from, in my opinion, maybe for me anyway, ridiculous to kind of pretty accessible for streamers. Again, network in, Ethernet, or yes, network in, Ethernet cable in, analog audio out, so it kind of does all the stuff. Network audio transports, this is like where you provide the DAC, maybe you've got a nice DAC that you really enjoy. DAC technology tends to change pretty fast, but if you've got something that you put some money into, that you want to get some more years out of, but you want to put it on your network so that you can stream to it, there's a whole bunch of different solutions for streaming to things. Star, Ultra Rendu, and Micro Rendu are kind of early around devices for around $800 that tended to do a pretty good job. They support a whole bunch of different protocols besides Roon's protocol. They do all the Logitech stuff and everything else. So it's a pretty flexible device. It's a little spendy, but it's a good quality device. I've spent some time playing with it. Sodom has a network player that's also similar. It's Ethernet in and USB out. They may have one that does the speed as well, but I'd have to look and see. They've got a bunch of different. Sodom's got like a ridiculous number of products on their website. I think they're from Asia someplace. I don't remember where. Some of you guys probably know. Allo's got a couple of things. We've got this USBridge signature player over here. That giant black box in the back is their Shanti power supply. It's a linear power supply, and so it provides power to the streamer and then the little SPDIF daughter card that's on top of it to make things a little bit nicer. So depending on whether you buy it with this giant power supply or not, it's either $250 or all out, all in with fancy power supply. It's up to $600 or so. But performance is very good for those things. The Allo Digi1 signature player is a SPDIF out only, no USB. This one can have both the USB or SPDIF. You can decide which one you want to use. But if you know that you just want SPDIF, you can save a little bit of money and get that version instead. It's a nice device. These are based on Raspberry Pi technology, but they come from the manufacturer. Even though it looks a little DIY-ish on their website, they come from the manufacturer fully assembled. Everything that you need, they'll connect up to your network and just work. You don't need to know how to set them up or whatever. They'll just, if you're using Roon especially, they'll show up in the Roon UI as an output. If you're using other software, you might have to do a little bit more work, but they're not meant to be something that you have to build yourself. Though the company does support that if you're interested in doing that as well. DCS guys have something fancy. Eli guys have a network renderer as well. Pro-Ject have a kind of matching streamer to that, or matching network audio transport that matches that DAC. It's a bit expensive in my view, but it tries to do some fancy things to kind of remove noise, and so depending on your situation, it might be worthwhile. The funnest thing that I've played around with, and I posted some pictures someplace, I'll share some when I send out this deck, is this NanoPi Neo 2. All in, it's $39. It's a little teeny tiny computer, about like this big. It runs Pi and it has a single USB port, Ethernet in and USB out. That almost like takes up the whole side of it, just the USB port and the network port. But one of the guys over at the Audio Science website did some really kind of nerdy analysis and measurement, and it measures really, really well as a network transport. $39. It does require a little bit of like DIY knowledge, but it's not too bad. And it's a really inexpensive way to like add more outputs to your house to stream to without spending a lot of money. But arguably, it sounds good enough that you could connect it to a good USB line and actually enjoy listening to it without too much trouble. Does anybody have any, we're running a little late, but does anybody have a system scenario they want to ask me about so that I could kind of tell you based on what you have, what you should consider buying to add streaming to it? All right, you've asked a lot of questions. I'm going to go to the gentleman in the back here.
Do you have a list of DACs that you recommend?
DACs are, DACs change a lot. So there are some that I've had some hands-on experience with that I really like. But I would kind of pursue kind of your normal audio shopping channels for that. I mean, in terms of value, the MyTech Audio and help me out, Benchmark, kind of from the pro audio side of things, they make really nice stuff. It's hard to go wrong with that. If you want something that is almost heirloom quality, probably you could go for a long time listening to those and not get bored of them. And they're not very expensive. Like, think, $1,500, $2,000 or whatever. Not outrageous as far as audio gear goes. If you want something that's lower cost, I think back in, where are they? Where is Shit Audio? They're in Texas or California, or I don't know. California, yeah. So those guys, they make a whole range of products. They've got a $99 DAC that a lot of people rave about, and they've got a DAC that goes up to $2,300 or $2,400. And they're not really big into MQA and BSD and some of the other tweaky stuff, but they generally, and they don't measure very well, as it turns out, but people like the way they sound. So, it kind of depends on your priorities and what kind of formats you care about and that kind of stuff. But there are a lot of good, DAC folks out there. A lot of people like this Topping DAC. I'm not saying it right, but it's like around $100 or $80.
You had a slide with the PS Audio. Was that the DAC? Which one is?
There's a PS Audio makes some nice DACs. Lee's got one, I think, still, right?
Yeah, direct stream. And they have a network card, so for like another 900, you can get a network bridge and you just plug that into your router and you're good to go for streaming.
Yeah.
You still need to have Roon and a Cobuzz or Tidal subscription, but then you're good to go.
Have you had a chance to listen to any of the audiophile Ethernet cables?
I have not. I have philosophical challenges with those, but don't let my philosophical challenges stop you from going down that path if you want to. Yes.
And how about using like an Oppo in there?
Oppo's has a nice DAC. I mean, you can't buy them anymore, but they're standalone DAC or the 205. Apparently it has a really nice sounding deck, and you know, it's not, I think that depending on what firmware you have on the 205, it can act as a Roon output directly. So you just plug an Ethernet in and it's actually a full-fledged streamer. Yeah?
On the Oppo DACs, the ones that are preferred or for audio are the 103, 105, because of the way they implemented the audio DAC. And those DACs, the actual DACs that are used were connected in parallel, all 8 channels.
Ah.
And when they connected them in parallel, they got about a negative 180 dB noise signature in them. When they went, so in other words, the audio used all 8 channels in the DAC, left and right channel, and then in the second DAC also, which made it much quieter and more dynamic. In 203, 205 series, they didn't do that. They utilized each one of those individual DACs in the chip for a channel in the surround sound system. And they got roundly criticized by the audiophiles for having done that. They were rather upset with that design change.
So keep in mind, if you have a 103 or 105, to be able to stream to it, you need to add a network audio transport. You have to have a transport in front of it. You can buy one from Allo for $250. You can build one yourself for $50, or you can spend silly money and get something that's really cheap. All those things are good options.
Well, from what I can see, and I've been looking around based on our discussions, you could probably find something in each of those pieces, in the network streamer and in a DAC, at any price point you want to talk about.
Yeah, so the good news is we waited until 2020, some of us, to get involved in this stuff. So there are a lot of choices now. When I started messing around with this stuff, like, there was not a lot of choices. You had to build some of the parts to be able to do anything at all.
Yeah.
But now all this stuff is common enough that you've got choices to kind of go where you want to. So some of the things you might not have thought of possible, I touched on this a bit before, but like, you know, a lot of us just have one audio system that's good in our house, and then maybe we have a clock radio, or we've got you know, a Bluetooth speaker someplace else in the house for background. But with streaming, you can have really good audio throughout your house at different quality levels without spending a lot of money. You can build all little audio endpoints that are cheap, like I said, for $50 or so. You can get slightly better ones that are on the order of a couple $100. You can have good quality network streaming to every room in your house. And once you have, maybe you've got a home theater that's separate from your audio environment, you can stream to both. You can start listening in one environment, like I said, and transfer that music to another. You can group, as long as zones are compatible as far as protocol goes, you can group them together, which is kind of neat. If you've had a Sonos or a Sonos system in your house for a long time, you're familiar with all these things already, but now you can do them at like sort of audiophile quality rather than at background music or kind of, you know, I don't care about the sound quality level. And I think that's why it's a pretty exciting time to do that. One thing that you can't do with a lot of this stuff is take your music out to your car. At least like with Roon, with these servers, you've got a music server in your house. Roon may solve this problem at some point, but you've got a music server in your house, and so it works when you're inside your house. When you go out on the road, you kind of can't. But I mean, I've got a Tidal app that's installed on here and a couple other things. This phone does MQA core decoding, and I can listen, you know, you can listen on your phone the same way as all the kids are doing to background music quality stuff.
And CarPlay supports MQA.
Yeah.
So I can decode MQA files on CarPlay in my car,
Very cool. Very
which
cool.
is kind of neat.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like opportunities to kind of spread these things out a little bit that you might not have thought about before. But streaming usually just kind of gets those. Where before, if all you had was CDs or records, you could put some number of CDs in your car, but certainly not all of them. With streaming services, you can effectively have access to all the music that you care about kind of anywhere you are. So pretty useful. People were asking about Roon parts. I think we touched on some of that stuff. An output is the thing that you connect to your stereo. The core is something that's noisy and far away from your stereo. And then the control is probably in your pocket, or you've got a nice iPad that you're looking at to control things. One thing that's nice about the Roon remote app is that when the screensaver kicks on, it completely shuts off. So it's not talking to the server, it's not making noise, it's not doing any kind of Wi-Fi transfers while it's asleep. And then as soon as you pick up the tablet, it may take it 3 or 4 seconds to kind of wake up. But the price that you pay for that latency is, or that lack of maybe immediate responsiveness is what you get, the benefit that you get out of that is that you don't have a device that's kind of humming away next to you making noise. I've got some pro tips for your Roon trial. If you decide to do a Roon trial, you can look at the slides later. Pro tips for getting good sound quality: never to connect the DAC to core. Can everybody repeat that? Read after me. Never connect the DAC to core. Come on. Never connect Don't do that. I'm tired of telling people that, and so it makes me cranky to have to keep saying that. Don't do that. If you care about sound quality, if you don't, I mean, why are you here? Don't just do what you want to do. I think that, and I've been kind of petitioning Roon to do this, me and Bob Katz, I guess, as well. Out leveling should be on by default in Roon, in my opinion. It offers a lot of benefits. There are a lot of newer music these days has true peaks that are above 0 dB in digital. If you know things about digital technology, you know that you end up with a lot of clipping and it's bad. You know, it's not like your tape deck where you can have, you know, your recording stuff and you can have your levels at plus 8 dB. There is no plus 8 dB in digital. 0 is it. And anything that goes above that is just sort of chopped off the top. And what people don't realize, well, they'll do some normalizing, right? So you've heard this normalizing thing. Well, they'll try to make the peak of the loudest track actually be 0 dB. But the problem is that they're only sampling at 44.1 kilohertz. When you oversample, there's a lot of intersample peaks that when I complete that curve will be above 0 dB. And most stacks don't handle that very well. So you end up with some distortion that's not very pleasant. So if you enable volume leveling, one of the things this helps you do, there's a lot of benefits to volume leveling, but one of the things that helps you do is get rid of that distortion that you've probably been used to hearing in your DAC, and it kind of lets your DAC play closer to its sweet spot. A lot of problem with digital music is that it's the recording level is very, very high, so you're driving the analog output stage of your DAC really, really hard, probably outside of its linear range or getting close to the outside of its linear range. You pull the levels down just a little bit digitally, now you're operating both the digital circuits and the analog circuits of your DAC closer to its sweet spot, and you'll get a little bit better sound. The other thing is if you've got a playlist and you're moving from one album to another, you're not constantly diving for the volume control. I find now that I have volume leveling turned on, I set my preamp to a specific volume level and I almost never have to touch it. It's always playing back, no matter what music I'm playing, kind of the average levels are around 83 or 85 dB, which for my ears works out really well, and I don't have to mess with the volume control anymore. So it makes the experience a lot nicer. The more time you spend doing that, the more you like it.
So how do you compensate for that now at your house, playing Roon?
How do I compensate? What do you mean?
Well, Roon doesn't have the auto.
It does, actually. And it should be enabled by default, in my opinion, but it's
Oh,
not.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
He's just saying he wants it enabled by default.
I think that it should be an advanced feature. Somebody who knows what they're doing can turn this off. Otherwise, everybody should get it on by default in all the outputs because it's a better user experience and it's nicer. And it also kind of helps us to fight the loudness war a bit, right? Because you know, music producers are all like, well, if we can make whichever music sounds the loudest, people are going to buy more. But if all the devices did volume leveling, that would never happen. It would all be done correctly.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think this is my last slide, actually. So, yeah.
when I enable Roon volume and use the volume control in a Roon remote,
Yeah.
I cannot play a QS.
You can. We'll talk about it. We can talk about it offline.
Okay.
There's a setting problem with
And
that.
then my other quick question, I'm just stunned to see that it says never connect back to a core.
Yeah.
I have my PC as my core USB connected to a Brooklyn DAC.
Right.
That's wrong?
That's wrong. Right. That's wrong.
All right, thanks.
If you want to get the best sound quality, I promise you'll get better sound quality if you can get that PC someplace else on your own network, and then use a dedicated, very low power network device or network transport to feed that Brooklyn DAC instead.
Okay, I didn't get it to another room, 10 feet away, but is that far enough? Or does it-
Don't set it. It should not be connected via USB at all. Because USB is
No, I
yeah.
can
So,
get it to another room, unconnected to US. How do I get the signal to the Brooklyn?
you're going to need a network audio transport, like this Allo USBridge thing I've been talking about.
Okay.
So you'll need another component. It's going to cost you a couple $100 maybe.
Okay.
But you're an audiophile. You're going to get better sound. It's going to be worthwhile.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Transport
sure.
work, I mean, he gets it to a room that's 10 feet away, that transport is right next to the system, is that correct?
Yeah.
And is it wireless between there?
Like I said, wireless can work. It's not best. If you can do a wired
You
connection.
use a hard wire of some sort to
Yeah.
this transport, Ethernet.
Yeah, Ethernet is the best way.
All right.
All right. Are we all good? Did we get through this? How late are we? 4 minutes late? All right. Thanks, you guys, for sticking around.